with his adoring public looking on here at the La Defense Arena.
The bell that closed Clash in Paris may have ended a match, but it opened something bigger. An evening where two pillars of modern wrestling spoke from entirely different rooms and somehow met in the same moment. On one side, Roman Reigns, taped and monitored, sat upright in a hospital bed and addressed the world without pyro, without a ramp, and without a title over his shoulder. On the other, Dean Ambrose, the most unpredictable third of the Shield, stared down a lens from an undisclosed location and aimed his words at Seth Rollins with the clarity of someone who has carried history and decided it was time to set a piece of it gently back on the table. Together, their voices reframed the week from outrage to intention, turning a storyline tremor into a map for where this era could go if pride, patience, and professional respect are allowed to share the same ring. Roman's hospital room, leadership from a pillow and an IV stand. What made Roman's message land wasn't volume, it was posture and presence. He didn't pretend he wasn't hurting, didn't sell invincibility, and didn't bark. He spoke like a captain whose boat had taken on water and who still knew where the shoreline was, thanking the medical team, acknowledging Jey Uso's weight-bearing loyalty, and promising something that belongs to real leaders. A careful return, not a rushed one. The room was quiet enough for beeps to be audible, and in that hush he proved that control isn't only the ability to dominate a ring. Sometimes it's the discipline to let experts set the pace while you set the tone, reminding fans that time is a tool, not an enemy, and that champions are measured as much by their decision-making as by their highlight reels. The statement itself. Power without pyro. You think I'm finished isn't a threat when it comes from a bed. It's a mission. Roman didn't promise revenge or name a dozen opponents. He promised standards. That the bloodline will be defined by responsibility instead of wrath. That matches will be won under lights rather than in hallways. And that he will not trade longevity for a headline. There is a particular kind of electricity that comes from restraint, and that's what the camera captured. Eyes steady, voice level, no theatrics needed. He didn't rewrite his character so much as refine it, shifting the axis from invincibility to insistence. The insistence that everything that bears his name, promos, brawls, title bouts, recoveries, will be executed in ways that honor the craft and protect the people. Jey Uso and the Bloodline. Keeping the center while it heals. In the days since Paris, Jey's role has clarified without a wordy monologue. Show up, set the temperature, and keep the room humane. He's the first face at the curtain and the last to leave a tense segment, not to escalate, but to anchor, and that is the heartbeat the Bloodline needed. Fans sense it and mirror it with family signs and softer chants between the thunder, understanding that the group's next act isn't a louder one, it's a sturdier one, checking in rather than lashing out, choosing dates and stipulations over impulses, and letting the story funnel toward the bell instead of the backstage. If Roman is the gravity, Jey is the gyroscope, steadying the spin so the constellation doesn't wobble. Seth Rollins' counterpoint, the architect hears the echo. Seth's response, precise, needling, maddeningly composed, was exactly the antagonist's music this moment required. He did not call for mayhem. He called for a mirror, reminding Roman and everyone listening of the chair shot that still echoes in fan memory and of the argument he's always made. That vision outruns sentiment. The genius of his reply was in the restraint. No pile-on, no cheap shots at a hospitalized rival. Just the cool logic of a man who believes the scoreboard reads in his favor and who trusts the ring, not a rant, to cash the check his mouth just wrote. It set stakes on the right stage and placed respect, not recklessness, at the center of their collision course. Dean Ambrose speaks a brother's note. Across brand lines, Ambrose's message arrived without sirens or stunts, just a face, a pause, and a sentence aimed at a friend turned foil. This isn't how it ends. He did not promise to hop fences or break contracts. He sent what felt like a humane telegram from one era to another, acknowledging the weight of what the Shield was, the cost of what it became, and the possibility that healing sometimes looks like finishing a sentence together, even if the punctuation is different for each man. It was less an invitation than a reminder that before they were brands, they were brothers, and brotherhood is measured in how you honor the past while refusing to let it handcuff the present. What Ambrose didn't say: boundaries, respect, and reality. There was no fantasy booking in his eyes, no wink at a forbidden door. His delivery respected the lines drawn by jobs and jurisdictions, while still making room for something bigger than tribalism. The idea that legacies are portable and friendship can be spoken aloud without jeopardizing anybody's workplace. He spoke like a professional who understands two truths at once: that fans deserve clarity and that the best place for repair is often a private call, not a public angle. By leaving space, he gave the story oxygen and refused to drag it into rumor fog, letting the message be about people first and promotion second. The Shield's shadow. What reunion really means. The word tempts shortcuts, but the smarter definition is smaller and more significant. Not three men sharing a corner, but three men sharing closure. A reunion can be a handshake, a segment, even a shared sentence that draws a clean line under a decade of echoes. If anything ever materializes, it should be measured, respectful, and explicitly safe, a moment that honors the miles on their bodies and the miles yet to go. And if it never does, that can be beautiful too. A choice to leave the past unbroken and let the present stand on its own legs. Either way, the legacy isn't relic dust. It's living memory, and living memory deserves care. Creative crossroads: frame the fire, don't feed it. The best next step isn't an ambush, it's a contract. Let challenges be spoken with stipulations that reward control. Time limits that matter, rope breaks enforced, officials empowered to reset scrambles. And then tell the story in the choices wrestlers make under those constraints. The Paris fallout created perfect conditions for clean, consequential wrestling. Two philosophies, order versus disruption, meeting in the center with the crowd tracking each beat because every rule has teeth. That's where rivalries become classics, not just moments, and where performers cash in on trust they've earned by steering clear of shortcuts. Production choices: shoot humanity, not hurt. The truck's role is crucial. Keep frames steady, favor wides that let body language breathe. Reserve the hard zoom for finishes and verbal daggers, and give medical updates a respectful lower third rather than ominous stingers. We don't need hallway footage or shaky cams to believe stakes. Hold on. Roman's exhale as a therapist clears him for the next phase, on Jay's nod when he signs the contract, on Seth's hands clasped behind his back when a referee lays out the rules. The result is a tone that sells tension without glamorizing pain, a visual vocabulary that respects performers and rewards viewers. The locker room temperature: stewardship over shock. When the biggest story in the company chooses calm over carnage, the ripple is healthy. Agents emphasize sequencing, producers champion structure, and veterans mentor loudly about longevity. How taking care of your dance partner is the legacy that lasts. The unspoken benefit is bandwidth. A dozen wrestlers suddenly have space to audition for higher card oxygen, because the main event isn't demanding every ounce of adrenaline to stay inflated. That doesn't make the product softer, it makes it stronger, extending careers and sharpening the work, so the biggest matches arrive with performers who still have their fastball. Read and Breaker. Course correction over counterpunch. For Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker, the smartest pivot is away from posture and toward proof. Acknowledge the line between heat and harm. Ask for opponents who make chemistry feel inevitable, and then demonstrate conditioning and pacing that say, "We prepared and we listened." Fans forgive with their lungs when they can see growth with their eyes, And nothing turns a tense week into a lasting chapter like crisp timing, clear ring IQ, and finishes that feel earned. They have the tools. Now they have the context to use them wisely. Business without the bluster. Trust as the metric ratings bump and trends spike. But the metric that moves mountains is sentiment. Sponsors praised the emphasis on care. Mainstream outlets covered the human angle instead of chasing conspiracy, and fans rewarded sincerity over spectacle for spectacle's sake. WWE found a lane where nuance sells, less shock, more substance, fewer car crashes, more craft. Buzz buys you a night, trust buys you a decade, and Paris to Post showed the company making a meaningful deposit in the trust account, the kind that compounds in ticket lines, in patience for slow-burn storytelling, and in the gentler hum of crowds that chant for people as much as for pyros. The fan chorus, choosing connection over conjecture. The audience told on itself in the best way. Family, do it right, earn it under lights, hand-painted on poster board and held high like a set of shared values. That's not PR, it's a pact. Fans can boo a character and still cheer a challenge if the work is undeniable and the boundaries are clear. It's why a hospital room promo can do stadium numbers and why a straight-ahead contract signing can land louder than a brawl. Because the room trusts the room. The more the product honors that, the more elastic the audience becomes when it's time to stretch towards stadium scale. Stakes on the calendar, structure makes the story sing. If the collision course leads to a major PLE, be it Crown Jewel or another tentpole, the smartest frame is the simplest. One-on-one for Roman and Seth with rules that matter, or, if layered, a format that makes discipline the point. Think Iron Man clocks the crowd can see, countouts that count so floor work has consequence, and rope breaks that reset rather than recycle. When rules mean something, strategy does too, and wrestling returns to what it's always been at its best. A live chess match where bodies talk and audiences keep score in gasps and ovations. Roman's rehab roadmap. Time as a title. Reigns has always controlled cadence, of matches, of promos, of arenas full of people, and the veteran's move now is to extend that mastery to his own rehab. Specialists over schedules, clarity over cliffhangers, and returns authored by readiness rather than posters. The ripple effect is healthy for everyone else. Fresh matchups get sunlight, tag and women's programs expand, and mid-card feuds graduate because the top of the card isn't monopolizing oxygen. When Roman walks back through the curtain, the pop won't just be for a star returning, it'll be for a standard upheld. If the Shield echoes. Again, what one last message could be Ambrose's line. This isn't how it ends. Doesn't have to be a booking promise. It can be a compass. A future sit-down where three men who changed a decade talk about the cost and the craft. A split-screen moment where pride yields to perspective. Even a quiet acknowledgement on separate shows that the bond survived the brand. The point is not to tease the impossible, but to honor the real. That friendship and rivalry can coexist, that closure can be collaborative, and that the audience remembers the nights that end with respect as vividly as the nights that end with fireworks. The message we keep. Family, boundaries, better fights. Strip away the pyros and the hashtags, and you're left with a set of principles the week made plain. Protect your people, funnel conflict toward the bell, and let discipline, not decibels, decide who sits atop the mountain. Roman modeled it from a hospital bed. Jay underlined it at Gorilla. Ambrose echoed it across an aisle. Seth parried with the right kind of edge. Reed and Breaker now have room to grow inside it. And the company, through the choices of producers, med teams, and the truck, proved the product can be sharp without being reckless. Closing pulse. The line that lasts. The bloodline remembers, makes for a chant. The truth that lasts is better. The family remembers to protect its own, restores balance without courting chaos, and never forgets that in a craft built on impact, the most lasting impact is how well you care for the person across from you. Roman Reigns is healing on the clock that matters. Jey Uso is centering the room. Dean Ambrose reminded everyone that endings are choices, not accidents. Seth Rollins stands ready with a counter-argument only the ring can settle. And the audience, invited to choose substance over spectacle, just showed it will, again and again, if the story honors their trust. That's not just a comeback, it's a quiet revolution, one measured beat at a time, building toward a roar that everyone who created it will be healthy enough to hear.